Back here on the Big Ten Huddle, we're talking Big Ten buy or sell on fall camp hype. Zach, this one came out very recently. Some of these are not super recent. Some of these I have done a little bit of a video on, so I'm going to, give you a lot more of the floor here on some of these. But this one I have not done a video on yet, so I am interested to get your thoughts on this. And it is about the Indiana Hoosiers, as Josh Hoover on 3 is reporting, actually Pete Nakos of On 3 is reporting that sources say apparently Josh Hoover has just as good as an arm as Fernando Mendoza. Zach?
Don't tell that to Sonny Dykes.
Yes, don't reveal that to him. He might be very upset. Zach, buy or sell on Josh Hoover having just as good of an arm as Fernando Mendoza? And for clarification, buy means you agree, sell means you disagree.
Yeah, I think I buy it. Mendoza, I think he had a really good arm, obviously NFL caliber arm. I don't think Mendoza's arm strength though was like his greatest selling point. It was his leadership, his moxie. So if you're just saying that he has as good of an arm as Mendoza, like I think we've been buying that since the summer. So yeah, I'm there. I want to see how he leads.
I'll go with buy as well. But I don't like. There's other parts of Fernando Mendoza's game that I don't think like. I think Fernando Mendoza had the most incredible Joe Burrow arm and stuff like that? Actually, I don't think he did. I'm not going to say that he wasn't good or anything like that. Obviously, he was a Heisman Trophy winner. He was excellent. But Mendoza, he had good amount of accuracy, and he had just enough of the arm strength that he needed to make some of those back shoulder throws. But really what you saw out of him that was better than anything was his timing on a lot of those throws. Yeah, timing can fix not having the, Joe Milton arm out there, which, by the way, you don't really need the Joe Milton arm. That's kind of the misconception is like, oh, the dude can throw it 80 yards. It's like, okay, but he also throws it 3 seconds late. So it's not going to be all that great. So I'm not trying to disparage Fernando Mendoza's arm here or anything. I actually think it was everything around Fernando Mendoza that made him, so much into the quarterback that he was. Very good arm from him. I think Josh Hoover can have a very good arm. My question is, can Josh Hoover be the guy who's on time? Can he have the connection with his receivers that Fernando Mendoza had? And can he be the scrambler and not just the scrambler, but the QB draw artist that Fernando Mendoza was? That is a part of his game that does not get talked about enough. He was a complete master at the QB draw, and that was something that Kirk Cinetti and Mike Shanahan went to over and over again. Yeah. That touchdown in the national championship game, Zach?
Yep.
QB draw. I mean, that was the type of stuff that they ran all the time. They would run that on 3rd and 8. And get the first down because he was just so good at it. And like you said, the leadership, the preparation, everything else that went into it, I can totally buy that he has just as good of an arm as Fernando Mendoza. I can't buy that he is the same, intangibles player as Fernando Mendoza until I see it. I might buy it, but I just can't buy it until I see it.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that. With that.
Anything else there you want to talk on?
No, I mean, I think I appreciate, and I think we're both saying this, arm strength isn't everything. And I actually don't think arm strength was what made Mendoza special. Mm-hmm. And so I buy that they might have similar arms. If I'm honest, I don't really care.
You don't care if he has just as good of an arm, you're saying?
Yeah. Like I want to see his intangibles. I want to see the timing you were talking about, his sense to scramble. Like, those are the things that matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tend to agree. All right, let's go on to the next one here. We're going to kind of rapid fire through these a little bit, not spend too much time on them. Number 2, Dylan Raiola looks like a completely different quarterback at Oregon than he did at Nebraska. Apparently, according to reports, he changed his body, he's improved his speed, and actually feels better physically now than he did before his ankle injury. And remember, he already was improving at Nebraska, going from 67% completion percentage, 13 touchdowns touchdowns and 11 interceptions to 72.4% completion percentage, 18 touchdowns, 6 interceptions in 9 games last season. His sophomore efficiency jumped substantially before the season-ending injury, and for Oregon, that matters. Get him one more year in the system, have him take over next year as the starter, and I see no indication to say that won't be the case with Dylan Raiola apparently making the leap that he has. Zach, do you buy that he is a completely different quarterback than he was at Nebraska?
Is there a push option?
No.
Okay.
Commit or get off the. Never.
I'm gonna buy.
Okay.
But I'm keeping the receipt for a possible return. But I buy it for this reason. I think at Nebraska, there was a lot of pressure on him to be the savior. And I think sometimes what happens when you're trying to rebuild a program, you're still kind of looking for an identity and you're still trying to streamline how you do things. Oregon is a well-run machine. Mm-hmm. And so at least the reports about body and his improvement, and this is not to say that Nebraska can't get there, but Oregon has been there for quite some time. Like, Dan Lanning knows how to run a program. They're just vastly different.
Mm-hmm. I'll say buy, too. I think there's a couple other things going into this. Do I think he is a completely different talent than he was? No. If this is talking about talent, I do not buy that. But I buy this for a few different reasons, similar to kind of what you were talking about. I buy this. If he has lost weight, I do genuinely think that is going to help his first step in the pocket, getting away from pressure. Mm-hmm. That was one of his biggest things. I still remember when CBS was like, pocket presence, give me the pocket presence of Dylan Raiola. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like... I just do not understand some of the media and what they'll say just randomly for whatever reason. Anyway, I'm not gonna go after anybody else. Sorry, went after Brett McMurphy. I'm not gonna go after anybody else. But I do think that could help him a lot. I do think a change of scenery to a program that, like you said, is a much better, well-oiled machine. I think. At Nebraska, he kind of got everything he wanted. I think that Matt Rule was willing to turn him into, you get whatever you want, you stay here. And then I think Matt Rule saw that wasn't going well and eventually put his foot down and basically said, all right, dude, either you improve and you be the guy that we need you to be, or you can go someplace else. And I do credit Matt Rule for that. I think that there is an aspect of getting a 5-star quarterback sitting into the league that would give Nebraska a whole lot. But at a certain point, you couldn't keep it going, right? Dylan Raiola, he was obviously not successful enough at Nebraska in his time there. He had his uncle as the offensive line coach, and he needed to be fired. And you look at all that, everything else that was going on with everything. Like Dylan Raiola, I don't think he was bad at Nebraska, but I do think that there are aspects of going to a new program that's a better oiled machine that is going to improve him as a person and overall as a quarterback.
Yeah. I think there might be a little confusion in the chat because people are saying a transfer is going to start in Oregon. Raiola's not going to be the starter.
No, Dante Moore is.
Just to be clear, Dante Moore is the starter. We're not buying that Raiola is going to beat out Moore. We're buying that he is an improved quarterback. And I think to what you're saying, it's about discipline, training program. Like, I think all those things really matter to a quarterback's development. And so I think similar Will Howard from Kansas State to Ohio State, like I think Will Howard became a much better quarterback because he went to a school that knows how to develop quarterbacks at an elite level.
Yeah. And I totally agree with Alta here. Well, duh, look who he's throwing to. Yeah. That helps a lot. And I also think that Dylan Raiola did not necessarily fit what Dana Holgorsen wanted to do.
Yep.
Yeah. If Drew Memringer is a good OC, like keep chopping his ass if he's a good OC. I don't know. He's not been an OC for a while, so we'll see. He's never had this type of talent as an OC, so we'll see. He has experience, which I think is good, but we'll see this season. Yeah. So, all right. Anything else on that, Zach?
No, I think we've done a good job.
Okay. All right. Let's do one more and then head a commercial break, and we'll come back. Buy or sell, Zach. USC freshman edge, defensive end, whatever you want to call him, Luke Wafle is forcing his way onto the field. In fact, Zach, I've even seen, and these are mostly fans, these are not sports writers, so I'm not going to come at the sports writers here, but I've even seen some fans compare Luke Wafle to a Jeremiah Smith type of readiness. Now, not being Jeremiah Smith, I've not seen anybody say that he's going to win a national championship his freshman year or anything like that, but a type of readiness when you look at his body structure, 6'6", 265, when you look at how he has the ability to start this season. We'll see if he starts or not, but he has the ability to start, a lot of people are saying, and he could be a cornerstone piece of the team at a very important position. If that happens, sure, we're buying it. But at the end of the day, I think for me, I need to see it actually happen before I buy it. I buy that he is going to be very involved and he's forcing his way onto the field. I don't know if I buy the Jeremiah Smith type of readiness stuff. Yeah. I think he can prove it, but I'm not going to buy it until I see that.
Yeah, I was going to say, we called that he is going to be a problem this year.
Oh, yes. He's going to be very good.
We called that. Go back, watch what we put out about Wafle, I think back in May or June. But there is a difference between being a problem or being a force to be reckoned with versus what Jeremiah Smith did his freshman year. I think if Wafle has that same type of impact, you're talking about double-digit sacks, multiple forced fumbles, multiple defensive touchdowns. That's the type of impact, and having to double team him, every play. And I'm not sure he can have that impact. Maybe by the end of the season, but I don't think it's going to be instant. Where you're seeing that.
I was going to say, if we compare production to Jeremiah Smith, you're right. It's going to have to be double digit sacks and stuff like that. I don't want to put that type of expectation on a guy. I just don't think it's fair. If he does it, great. If it feels like teams have to double team him and stuff like that, great. That's obviously awesome for USC. But I can buy some of the physical readiness and stuff like that. It's kind of the role of him on the field as being the star player of USC his first year, especially the star player on defense, that I'm kind of a little hesitant on. But make no mistake, Luke Wafle, he's going to play a lot this season. He has done a lot in fall camp. There are a lot of reasons why. There are very good reports of him coming out of fall camp, and so I'm kind of in between on this one. I'll say sell because of the Jeremiah Smith stuff, but I still think he's going to be phenomenal this year.
Yeah, I do think he might have the most sacks of any player on USC's team this year. I think there's going to be a committee. I think there's going to be a number of people coming in and doing pass rush. I think with Gary Patterson being there, he'll come up with some really good defensive schemes to get a lot of players involved in that pass rush. And so I wouldn't be shocked if Wafle has the most sacks. But I think I buy that he's going to be an impact player. I don't know if I buy the ceiling yet.
Well, one of the reasons I buy it too is because look who he has in the middle of that defensive line. If Jakeem Stewart and Alex Van Sumeren are the guys that they're supposed to be, which Jakeem Stewart did flash last season as a true freshman, and Alex Van Sumeren, like we've said, Michigan State defensive tackles go out west and typically do pretty well. It's not uncommon for that to happen. If those guys are two of the top defensive tackles in the Big Ten, like I think they can be, you're gonna set Wafle up to have a really good year. So. Yep. All right, let's hit a commercial break. We'll come back. We've got two more buy or sells, one about the Michigan wide receiver room, and the other one about an Ohio State nickel cornerback who will most likely be going up against that Michigan wide receiver room. Should be fun to talk about the two rivals here coming up after this. The Michigan Wolverines, Zach, have a lot going for them this year in certain position groups, and one of those position groups is the wide receiver position. Zach, do you buy or sell that Michigan's wide receiver room goes from one of the worst, if not the worst, position group on the roster to one of its best this season. Andrew Marsh, J.J. Buchanan, Jamie French, Celeste Moa, the freshman, Travis Johnson, the freshman. You still have Channing Goodwin on this team who played for them last year, and now Camp is reinforcing this with wide receiver coach Micah Simon describing his depth as a good problem is what he calls it. Marsh himself said he believes that the Michigan wide receiver core can be something special this season. And before camp, one analyst already ranked wide receivers at Michigan as the fourth best position group on the team. And I've only seen thoughts and analysis of that growing ever since camp has started. Zach, do you buy or sell this type of hype?
I believe I said in the Michigan preview that wide receiver was my position of strength.
On offense, you said, yes.
Yes, on offense. So I am 100% buying this.
Yeah, yeah. When I look at the defense, I don't know if I buy it as an elite position groups on Michigan just yet. Still think you have better safeties. I still think you have better cornerbacks. I think you probably have most of your defensive line being better. So to me, elite is like top 3 position group on the team. And if they're fourth, which is currently where I would have them right now, if I was ranking like Michigan, position groups, either fourth or fifth, I'm going to say that's not elite. So I will sell this one, but not because I think it's completely wrong, but just because I think there's a few other position groups I would have above them. But there's also a lot of youth here, so there's a lot of potential that we're looking at. Andrew Marsh is proven. J.J. Buchanan had over 400 yards last season, so you can say he's proven to a certain extent as well. But we're looking at Jamie French, a former 5-star. We're looking at Celeste Moa, Travis Johnson. Like, we're looking at some guys after those first 2 that you're saying, okay, they have the opportunity to be very good, but we just haven't seen it yet. And to me, if you're an elite position group, you return somebody who's an 1,000-yard receiver, and Michigan's not doing that.
No, but Andrew Marsh, I think what he can become, and I get he was a freshman a year ago. I think what he can become, I think what Jamie French can become. I know we're talking a lot about potential. I feel like I could make an argument that actually the 2 best position groups on the team are running back and wide receiver.
Yeah, I would put running back over wide receiver, personally.
Yeah. But I think the defense, I can see your point about some of the defensive positions. I'm not so sure that by the end of the year, any defensive position will be better than the wide receiving core.
Any? Okay.
It could. I just don't like. I think they have good talent at each level. I don't know if they have the type of potential that they do at receiver.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like,
I agree with you on the potential.
Yeah.
It's one of those ones where I have to see it.
Yeah. Let me, I'll just give one example and then we can move on. Like Rod Moore, really good safety. Like I think we're both, even as Ohio State fans, really excited to see him come back. I think Rod Moore is a really good college football player. I don't know if he's going to be an elite safety at the NFL level. I think Andrew Marsh and Jamie French could develop into elite wide receivers.
I'd say that with Marsh. I wouldn't say that with French yet, just because we haven't really seen him at all. Yeah. I mean, it's 5-star, so obviously he has that potential, but we'll see. So, all right, interesting stuff. Last one here. We'll get to the chat is talking about Iowa. What did they predict here? They're talking about. Buckeye said Iowa's going to be feisty, going to beat up on another SEC team. Book it. I'd love to see it. Unfortunately, they don't have one on their schedule, so we'd have to rely on the bowl game.
What if they beat an SEC team in the playoff?
I'd love to see that too. Mm-hmm. After what I said earlier, I'd love to see Oklahoma and Iowa play each other in the playoff.
John Mateer throws 5 interceptions.
Well, and like this. Anyway, I'm not going to do that. We're going to move on. Start a whole new discussion if we do that. All right, buy or sell. Final one here, Zach. True freshman Jay Timmons. Now, it's not just the thought process that Jay Timmons is going to start at nickel, but it's a little bit of a thought process that's been out there. I will say not super prevalent, but I've seen some fans talking about it a little bit on some message boards and stuff like that. That Jay Timmons essentially beat out Earl Little Jr., the Florida State transfer that was getting all the hype in the spring, saying that he essentially beat out Earl Little Jr. for the nickel role. And now Earl Little Jr. is being moved to more of a safety role instead of the nickel. And Jay Timmons, the true freshman, will start at nickel for the number one team, preseason team in the country.
I think Jay Timmons is going to be a really good player for Ohio State. I'm selling this 100%. I think like I've heard a lot of people say that they're going to use Earl Little a lot like Caleb Downs. And I don't think he's going to be Caleb Downs. I'm skeptical about that as well. I'm selling that. But that's what they're saying. I don't think you say that about a player and put expectations like that on a player unless you're actually going to do it. So I think Jay Timmons is going to play a lot for Ohio State, but I think that's in addition to or to complement what they're asking Earl Little to do, not because he got beat out.
Yeah, I'm going to sell this one as well. And it's not because I think that like Jay Timmons didn't beat out Earl Little or anything, but I don't think people are ready for what this Ohio State defense is going to look like this year. I truly think we are going to see the Ohio State adaptation of the New England Patriots defense that Matt Patricia was running there for so many different years, where you have a ton of depth and every single guy on that team, especially on the defense, is good at something. Like there is something about their game that is going to get them on the field. Because you look at this defense, there's not really anybody here that's like, star player, number one dude type of guy. You could say that maybe with Devin Sanchez with his potential, Jaden McClain, Kenyatta Jackson could be that guy this season. New linebacker Peyton Pierce, he's been getting a lot of hype. It's kind of like that defensive anchor, green dot kind of guy. So there's some of that there. But overall, I think this is going to be a defense that is almost completely different week to week, and they're going to be utilizing different players in different situations. So I don't think this was so much that like Earl Little was locked in with the nickel spot and Jay Timmons just took it away from him. I think this was Ohio State got to fall camp. Jay Timmons proved he is a dude, and Matt Patricia is now saying, all right, he proved it. We thought he was in spring. He did very well in spring. Now let's give him a role on this team. Maybe he starts, but even if he doesn't start, he's going to play a lot of snaps for us because he's going to be valuable to have out there. So, yeah. I think looking at starting numbers for Ohio State's defense this season is not going to be a good practice. Like, I think you're going to have to look at snaps and you're going to have to look at how often was this guy on the field because Matt Patricia is going to adjust and do different things as the game moves on.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed. So, I think, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I sell, but I'm not selling because I don't think Jay Timmons is going to start or play. It's because I think there's a whole lot more context around this Ohio State defense this year.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're selling the idea that Jay Timmons beat out Earl Little. Like, I think that's wrong. But do we think Jay Timmons is going to play? Yes. Yep.
And Buckeye's with us. He says, Timmons, look out for a dude named Timmons on OSU defense. Yep. There's a lot of dudes you got to look out for in this Ohio State defense. I don't think they have the top-end talent where you're going to have, 3 defensive players drafted in the top 11 of the NFL draft, but I think you can see, honestly, like, and Ohio State fans are going to hate me saying this, but I'll just say it. Kind of reminds me of the Michigan defense back when they won the national championship.
How so?
Just a lot of depth, a lot of different guys who can play a few different things and be out there for you and do some different things. Like I said, Michigan didn't necessarily have one guy that was vying to be like the number one overall pick or something like that, right? Because that was Aiden Hutchinson was before that. I'm not misremembering, correct?
I mean, they had Mason Graham. They had.
That's true.
Yeah.
They had
Grant,
that, but Kenneth Grant was also later in the first round.
Yeah, but they had a rotation of defensive tackles where you're like, oh, it's monster after monster after monster.
Yeah. So,
So.
but I also think they could have a guy emerge like that this season. So,
Yeah.
and yes, insert Connor Stallions joke here.